Absolute truth is the continuous silent teaching of the Maharshi. Truth refers to reality as it is, while absolute is indicative of it being invariable and of its not being in relation to anything else. In other words, its utter non-duality. That which truly exists, alone exists, of the nature of being, consciousness, bliss. This is your self, the only self that there is. This is what exists, apart from which nothing else exists. According to what you identify with, is established your relation to the Absolute and all else. So if you misidentify yourself with the form of a body, then you will be in relation to a supposed external world and a God distinct therefrom. If you know the truth that you are not the body, that the body is not a definition for yourself, that you are neither a body nor embodied, then can there be a relation to a universe? Can there be a relation to a God apart from yourself? Look at this more deeply. The truth is expounded everywhere in the Advaita Vedanta is Tattvamasi, that you are. How are you going to realize that? That is something that cannot be grasped, cannot be lost, is ever existent. According to how you regard your identity, you will conceive of your relation to that. So if you misidentify with the mind, that is thought, you will conceive of yourself as one thing and that as another, though the instruction, both in aphorism and in silence, is that you are, not that you are not. If you imagine yourself to be an individual, you will then be in some manner or another in relation to the truth. But the truth is absolute and is not in relation to anything. How can the real be in a relation with that which is unreal? Or the self with what is not the self? Where is the connection? So if you regard yourself as a thing, there will always be this distinction or difference. Non-differentiation, non-duality is truth. And truth is supremely blissful. So to realize that truth, you must set yourself free of all the imagined differentiation, the imagined duality. To do so, Why, that's a matter of ascertaining your identity. If you are distinct, even in the least, from the self, from Brahman, if that's true for a moment, then it's true for all eternity. And there's no liberation, which is absurd. For everyone that feels bound seeks liberation as an intuition of the natural state. Just as everyone who feels suffering seeks happiness as an intuition of the natural state. And that seeking for happiness cannot be stopped, although it can be fulfilled. The Maharshi gives the instruction to inquire, who am I? If you thus determine in self-knowledge what your identity actually is, you yourself are the liberation. You yourself are the bliss sought. You yourself are the very being or consciousness of that. So in order to find out the truth, realized experientially firsthand of that you are, tattvamasi, inquire as to who you are. And see for yourself that you yourself are not in relation to a body, to thought or a mind. That you are not an assumed individual who could be any such thing. Though the Maharshi's answers to questions put to him were always extremely relevant to the questioner, the glorious beauty of them, his answers, was that the answers always uprooted the imagined identity, thereby revealing absolute truth, in which he was giving instruction silently all the time. That silence still is. Absolute truth is eternal. Realize that absolute truth as your very being. It is a matter of self-knowledge. Again, if you misidentify as an I, as a mind, as a body, and so forth and so on, then you will assume you are in some way or another in some kind of relation to the Absolute. If you cease to misidentify with the body, the mind, or the ego, there is no relation. There cannot be a relation where there is not two. Attempting to inquire to know the self. Therefore, do not regard yourself as one thing and the self as another. If you do have that idea, I am a self attempting to realize the self, leave the self alone. It's fine. Inquire as to who you are. If you inquire, what is unreal is revealed as such. What is known as unreal cannot bind and does not remain. then reality knows itself. As the reality, Brahman, or the real self, alone can know itself. Only the non-dual truth can realize the non-dual truth. Do you understand? There is nothing objective in this knowledge. Nothing objective except that which is negated in this inquiry. All is resolved in an indivisible, non-dual, absolute reality. Thoroughly and deeply inquire into your own self. Who am I? And if you have a question at any point, or you need to relate your own experience, feel free to ask or to speak. If imagination is not necessary, then no kind of ignorance is called for. No kind of suffering is necessary. No kind of bondage is needful.
Separation between this and that.
The separation is only according to the nature of the one who perceives it.
So, what are you just telling Richard about going back to the one who knows this? You know, in kind of my meditation on Friday, I keep forgetting this, aspect, that I have to continually, I don't know why I forget, but it seems like it's clear at times. But it's so important just to investigate that aspect, that kind of that assumption that everything's based on.
All right. Do you ever forget yourself?
Okay. I can think that I'm something else, but you're asking.
But do you forget yourself? Do you forget your existence?
It's probably not on that level.
Mm-hmm. And the existence itself is the substrate upon which the thinking could even appear. It is by the light of that existence or consciousness that you can even be aware of the thinking. Can you remember yourself?
I've tried.
Has yourself ever been an object of memory?
Well, that's the confusing part, is that there's an experience of it, which trying to remember that experience seems like it does it, but it's something more than that. It's not just it's not the memory, it's the actual experience itself.
But the actual experience itself is a thought or not a thought?
It's not a thought.
And memory is a kind of thought.
Yeah, no question. Yeah. So I mix those up, though.
Mm-hmm. But in truth, you can't remember the self. But you can't forget it either.
Now, when you say you can't forget it,
Do you ever cease to exist or ever forget your own existence? What is within thought can be subject to memory, remembrance, forgetfulness, and other such mental conditions and modes. Are you a thought? Is it possible to really think of your being? Even if you think, my being, that's not the same thing, is it?
yeah, no, it's really very bland, unexciting.
It's not the actual experience,
No.
not the actual existence. So your existence is neither subject to being remembered nor being forgotten. In addition, how would it be possible to have a memory that is steady, that would survive, let us say, not only waking and dreaming, but deep dreamless sleep in which there is no thought activity? But self-knowledge transcends all three states.
Okay, yeah, because that really eliminates. So, in other words, if I would compare my meditation to, would it survive the transitions of all, or those states?
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, if the meditation is existing and continuous throughout those three states, then it would be valid.
Are you existing throughout all those three states? If you are, what is the nature of this you? Who are you that you transcend all three states? Whatever is limited to the scope of a state is merely a product of that state. So all the dreaming conceptions and perceptions are just a product of a dreaming state of mind. The waking state world, perceptions and conceptions are just a product of the waking state of mind, and is equally imaginary. The apparent not knowing or forgetfulness in deep dreamless sleep is just a product of that state. But you exist throughout all. So your nature cannot be anything of those states. Self-knowledge to be, self-realization to be eternal, to be non-dual, must be of the very nature of the self that's realized. Otherwise it would be dualistic and transient. And what is transient is not worth seeking, as the Maharishi has stated. Only what is eternal is worth realizing. You exist in all three states. That is, if 3 states pass by, you still exist. And that existence is invariable. Real knowledge, or the essence of deep meditation, is the very same thing. Look at your own experience and discern.
I know that whatever's on a mental level, definitely, that doesn't quite cut it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it seems like I get fooled by that mental level quite often.
The real self becomes fooled, or is there another one?
Yeah, the other one.
The other one. What's the nature of the other one?
I don't know what the nature is.
The one who doesn't know, who is he?
Okay, it seems like that one knows more. I should say knows more specific things, but is more closer to myself. In other words, when I try to investigate, it seems like that's more expansive.
How expansive?
I don't know.
Find out. If you find it is expansive beyond all ideas of expansiveness, then it is that which is formless. Which means whenever you actually inquire into that ego entity or individuality, no ego or individual is found, but just the expansiveness, Brahman, the real self. If conceived otherwise, how many are there of you?
That is important, because it seems like there's, I mean, it never feels like there's really multiple. However, there's a confusion that there's multiple.
Where does the confusion dwell?
definitely on the superficial. So it's only,
Where is the superficial contained?
it seems like it must be contained in the notion of I existing as something.
All right. Within the notion of I am existing as something, I'm a this, I'm a that, etc., is all that's superficial. All that's just the thin veneer of illusion. All that actually does not exist. Or is the stuff of imagination. So one notion of I contains all the illusion, is the source of all the delusion. It itself constitutes the entire illusion. All of Maya is just I.
That seems, I guess it goes back to the original question, was it's so important, I guess, to know that what is aware of, what is always before that kind of existing as an individual, or that hallucination.
Is there a before and an after? Was the I born? There is the unborn real self, which is also imperishable. Was another one born? If you assume so, then there'll be a before and an after. The original self and the break-off self. And then, as was mentioned earlier, you will attempt to determine the relation of this break-off self to that real self. Whether it's divided entirely, partially divided but some similarity, lots of similarity but partially divided.
Or
It'll change.
just like the weather. Or the ideas specifically.
The ideas usually change more quickly. But were you born?
And that being born could be anything. Just going from one state to another state, or
There must be someone who traverses from one state to another. That one I makes up all the illusion. It itself appears as subject and object. So examine that I. See what is there.
when you say examine,
Inquire, try to see the I as it is.
which ends up, when you ask me that, it seems like my experience becomes much deeper.
Mm-hmm. Whether we describe it as deeper or more expansive, it is the same thing. The ego which was never born is said to cease to exist. Its ceasing is really the realization of its utter unreality. The one self that has been there all alone, all the time, it knows itself.
Well, talking to Eric, you talked about all illusion coming out of the I misidentification. Before that, as I was meditating after we had talked, one of the things that I was reflecting on was that this sense of body identification and the waking state misidentification seem like the same one. And certainly, again, they're known. And at the level of that knowledge, again, of course, that's knowledge is not dual, even though there are these things that with thought were dual somehow when looking that way instead of at what is not dual. So this knowledge that knows the states, again, is kind of most unitary and seems, again, to have no boundaries or edges or starts or finishes.
So that which knows the body is utterly bodiless. That which knows the states is stateless. That which sees all the characteristics is nirguna, no characteristics, qualityless.
So how can that ever have been a body?
Therefore, transcendence of the body is not being in the body and going out of the body. There's nothing bodily about it. Transcendence is pure self-knowledge. Since it never had any relation to a body, your own words, it is naturally immortal. And the knowledge and the bliss of one who knows his own bodiless nature is similarly of the same immortality.
Except immortality implies some kind of duality that isn't present.
In what way?
Oh, immortality implies mortality and is kind of dual as an idea that the experience is not.
It all is determined by how we understand. Immortality is just immortal. It only implies a duality to those who conceive of such. Likewise, body and bodiless, realized, unrealized, and so forth, and all of the terms that are expediently used to point out something that can only be silently expressed.
On Friday night, you gave the instruction to meditate with certainty and pointed to the one thing that we're certain of is our existence. And so that was a great meditation. And then to also question, what do I really know for sure? And that certainty of my own existence is really, that's one thing I'm certain. Everything else probably should be questioned. So yesterday, and it's just kind of along the same line of Eric's question, I spent most of the day yesterday working in the garden, and I wanted it to have it be a day of just meditating. So I would start from that, I know that I exist. And then it seems like it's not very long before, I'm into this thing called gardening. And I'm in a body, and like I've now got hands. I went from something that appeared to be formless. I'm now battling with the weeds.
How did that happen? Is it just intrinsic to gardening? In which case, all should renounce gardening. But I don't think the Vedas say anywhere that you must renounce gardening.
No gardening allowed.
What happened? How did you go from being formless to having hands?
I think I made the mistake when I supposedly woke up. If I look at when I supposedly woke up and then had the thought, oh, let's see, I'm going to garden today. And then it was like on top of that, I'm going to try to meditate on top of that stack. If you follow what I mean, it's like
Why would the earnest desire to express in the idea, I want to meditate, or I'm going to meditate, why would that endow you with form and hands? You could eliminate the I'm going to meditate attitude, see if it does you any good. Most likely you'd just be stuck with a pair of hands. That would not be too impressive. What happened?
Well,
Do you have hands now? Are you the body?
what it feels like is I'm trying to answer that question from an identity called Jim that's in a body, and it just doesn't.
Where in the body are you? In a particular place or all over it?
Sort of all over, but more focused, like right about here.
So there's more of you there and less of you elsewhere?
It's a silly story, I know.
You shaved this morning. Did you lose part of your existence? You're all over it, so that includes in the areas of your
there was
beard
part
as
that went
well.
down the same.
Part of you literally went down the drain. Is that what happened? Or is that absurd?
That is so absurd. I would have had to felt less after shaving.
Right now your body's endowed with hands. If your body did not have hands, would you have less existence?
No.
So how can you say you're all over the body? Or the same thing in a particular spot. If the particular spot, something happens to that particular spot, does something happen to your existence?
Because in deep dreamless sleep, the spot and everything's gone. So
And that's just due to a change of mind. So the idea of being a body, a Jim in a body, is only an idea in your mind. Just like in your dreams last night, you seemed to occupy a body. But the body, the occupation of the body or inhabiting the body, and the things beyond the skin of that body, inside and outside, all of that was just the dream mind. The dreaming mind itself appeared as all of that. Likewise, your present ideas of being somebody in a body. If in deep dreamless sleep you were not a body, how did you become a body yesterday? But now you're not a body again. Is your existence changing its nature, or is something else happening?
Something else is definitely happening.
What is it?
Well, as soon as I start to examine what it is, there's less of it.
Mm-hmm. That's the nature of Maya. Seemingly beginningless, but when we find out its nature, it ceases to exist. And the more we examine it, the less there is of it. It's like looking for darkness with a lamp in your hand. So are you the body? Are you a pair of hands right now?
No.
Then could you have become a pair of hands yesterday?
The whole notion of yesterday right now seems a little far-fetched.
It was also in the mind. Time, space, everything. You can also see that nothing external is the cause of your pseudo-bondage. Nothing causes ignorance. In the example, gardening. The same would hold true with any other activity or external situation. None of it causes our bondage. Ignorance does not arise from circumstances, since circumstances are imagined based on ignorance.
They're an effect.
And the effect is not the cause of the cause. But the effect is the same nature as the cause.
So this whole notion that I'm forgetting is really it's only forgetting as long as it's unexamined.
asked you about this question before, but sometimes I'm still caught in a bad mood, where I don't feel I'm happy. So I'm trying to. I know that I don't like it, and I want to get out of it.
The desire to get out of it is your first step out of it. For without the desire, no effort would be made.
Right.
What makes up the bad mood?
Sometimes, I plan on something and it doesn't happen that way, for example.
Then you get grumpy. Do you know why you get grumpy? Becoming grumpy doesn't make it happen the way you want it to. It's not very effective.
Right.
So do you know, so it's not, you don't get grumpy for practical reasons.
That's not the goal, right?
That's not the goal. And it doesn't make the event go the way you wanted it to go anyway, not necessarily. So it's not practical, it's not effective. So why do you become grumpy?
I don't know.
Examine it closely. If you can find out why you suffer in such circumstances, you can get to the very root of that suffering and pull the root out. Gardening advice. Get that weed out of there.
Well, I feel the bondage is like I'm trapped in all the senses.
Okay. Trapped in the senses or trapped in your mind?
It's probably from the mind,
Is the moodiness something you see or hear or touch, or is it in your mind?
in my mind.
But you're moody about something that you're sensorially perceiving,
Yeah.
the circumstances. Why did you want the event or the situation to go a certain way?
I guess I have an idea that probably will make me happy.
Probably. You want that situation, that event to make you happy. And when it does not go the way you'd like it to go, you're unhappy. You're grumpy. Because you feel that your happiness or the potential to be happy has been stolen away from you by circumstances going a different direction. So you have a very good reason to be grumpy. Because your happiness has been stolen away. Now the question is who stole it? When you ask something else, another person, an object, a situation, to give you what is innately yours, in other words, when you ask something to fill you up with happiness, when you yourself are the source of happiness, you're always going to wind up grumpy. If situations don't go your way, you're going to be grumpy. And if they do go your way, it's just a matter of time till they eventually do not go your way, and you get grumpy again. Or you get bored with the situation the way you've designed it. And then you're grumpy again. It's not that grumpiness is the continuum, but as long as you think happiness comes from something external, you're going to be unhappy. You look to a circumstance, perceived through your senses, as you mentioned by you, to provide you with an experience that's non-sensory. Happiness is not something you see, or you hear, or you feel, or taste or smell. Happiness is something more internal. Not inside your body, but internal in the sense of who you are. Where your desire for happiness is rising from is the same place as the source of happiness. It's actually the same very thing as the happiness itself, since when you're happy, you're actually just experiencing yourself. Comprehend so far? So then you can know for certain that your unhappiness or grumpiness is due to some mistaken conception about yourself. In this case, about where happiness is. Mistaking the bliss of your own nature to be something else. Mistaking yourself to be separate from the bliss of your own nature. If a person knows where happiness is, what the source of happiness is, or what the nature of happiness is, any of this, if you know this, you become serenely detached from everything else. Even if your senses and your limbs are engaged in that something else, you're serenely detached. You're not looking for something to give you happiness, and nothing can rob you of it. In other words, you won't rob yourself. Then if circumstances go as planned, you're happy. And if they don't go as planned, you're still happy. Is it clear for you?
Yes.
Contemplate this, think it over deeply, reflect on it, meditate on it, so you're absolutely certain of it. It's a very simple question. Where is happiness? The Maharishi places the point about happiness as preliminary to the inquiry, who am I, in the book, who am I? And then he returns to a discussion later in the book about the nature of happiness. It's like the question, who am I, where is happiness, is very simple. Yet if we understand that one simple thing, it affects so much. A person who knows where happiness is unaffected by circumstances, is detached from all the world, her peace is steady, and she has a single-minded, one-pointed focus on knowing herself, because that's where the happiness is. She understands the motivation behind all other motives. She understands what impels the mind to motion, just by knowing where happiness is. One who knows where happiness is becomes utterly desireless, yet fulfills inwardly the essence of all those desires. Not the form of those desires, but the essence. Stay with that simple question until the answer saturates you, saturates your experience.
When there's a situation of extreme engagement of the senses in violence, for instance, in a concentration camp, undergoing torture or starving or extreme pain, can one still connect with this knowledge under such violent circumstances?
The violence or the injury is to the body only. The knowledge is intrinsically bodiless. The situation has no effect.
That's hard, isn't it? I mean, that's such a...
Why do you say it's hard?
Well, even today with a hip thing, needing to move and put extra cushioning on. I mean, that's kind of... It's insistent needing to be addressed seemingly.
Okay, so it's constant discomfort or constant pain
Yes.
or unremitting acute pain.
Yes, I mean, this is just mild.
This is just mild, but it
Yeah.
could go on increasing
Yes,
depending on how the situation would evolve.
yes.
What has that got to do with your nature? Where are you in all of this? Are you that body?
I guess I misunderstood. I misidentified freedom from sensual pain with knowledge.
Oh, if we just want to eliminate sensory pain, an anesthetic will do.
Yeah.
But giving someone an anesthetic does not endow them with wisdom. Nor has the Maharshi or Shankar, or in your case, for example, the Buddha, and nowhere do they recommend anesthetics as a practice. Because that's just shutting down the nerves, and so you don't have certain sensations. That wisdom, which is called self-knowledge, is not a sensory activity. It's not reached by the senses, and it's not disturbed by the senses. But if you yourself think of yourself as being wrapped up in the senses, either as a body or as some kind of sensing entity, then you'll seem to be afflicted by them. That your senses gravitate towards what is pleasant and away from that what is painful, that's just in the natural course of things. But you are not of the senses. The idea that you are the sensing entity or a nexus point of all the senses is only imagined in the mind. And when you don't imagine such in the mind, you're unaffected. Just like space is unaffected by whatever seems to be coursing through it.
Just like space
Is unaffected regardless of what seems to be coursing through it.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's a wind or a breeze or something solid apparently moving through it. It is unaffected. Just like the space contained within my hands right now
Yeah.
is unaffected if the hands disintegrate. Same space. The space is analogous to your real being or pure consciousness. It's not cooped up. It's not now outside. It's not put together. It's not broken.
It's not fragmented by obstacles. No.
There's no obstacle to the space.
जनकः उवाच हन्तात्मज्ञस्य धीरस्य खेलतो भोगलीलया न हि संसारवाहिकैः मूढैः सह समानता.
Janaka said, "O, the man of understanding, the knower of the self, who plays the game of life, has no similarity to the deluded beasts of burden of the world.
यत्पदं प्रेप्सवो दीनः शक्राध्या सर्वदेवताः अहो तत्रस्ति